Hey everybody, so this is the first of my rings workouts. I'm no longer doing the kind of back to basic hybrid style training I was doing when I had a more constrained training schedule. And so now I'm able to do basically splitting my body weight and kettlebell work into other workouts. I actually haven't bothered to film any kettlebell workouts lately. I'm still kind of working the kinks out on those. But I think once they're a little bit more formalized, I will go ahead and film those pretty shortly. Although I do have some shorts released of some of the complexes that I'm working with, such as the various burpee variations that I'm using for conditioning. Anyways, this is just me getting into it. Basically, I'm getting a little bit stronger on the rings. I think a lot of it though is just that I'm separating it entirely from the kettlebell workouts. Like when you start getting into the more high intensity training, you really need to do a split in order to optimize your energy and your effort, and also just to make sure your joints don't completely hate you. So, just the fact that I have the workout split, even by a day, even 24 hours rest, makes a pretty colossal difference in terms of how I'm feeling. I've also been tremendously prioritizing, connective tissue health and my mobility in general. My mobility is absolutely my limiting factor when it comes to my fitness. It always has been. And now that I have the time and energy to go after it, I'm really trying to improve my flexibility and kind of deal with, healing a lot of old injuries. I have a lot of old connective tissue injuries that like healed enough and I did PT for, etc., but they're still kind of like nagging. And I particularly when I get into an intense training period, those things tend to crop up. And so I'm trying to tackle those head on right now. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is just by including a lot more mobility work and a lot more kind of support work for those areas. So face pulls are a pretty good example. My shoulders and scapula are always taking a lot on mileage, and so anything like this is really excellent. Just getting that external rotation at the end can be really impactful. Let me see here. I'm just doing some variants of core work. Uh, the heat was pretty killer today. You can kind of tell by my hair. It's so easily affected by humidity that and heat that you can tell the days where the humidity is really bad because my hair texture tends to go kind of crazy. Yeah, I like doing these. I just think of these as like it feels more like a side bend, but it's basically a sideways ab rollout. And then there's kind of one armed variation, which I like to do just to change things up a little bit. So one of the ways I like to train anti-rotation isn't just by actually hitting my obliques directly. It's by having sort of an uneven load where I'm facing forward, but it's leaning to one side. Here's some cradle work. I think it went a little bit too low on that. My nose was nearly scraping the dirt, but I was feeling pretty good. I also have noticed I've started to lean out a little bit. I think that's just a product of not having to commute, not eating as much crappy food, getting better sleep. Those things kind of tend to accumulate. And then here I am. I'm trying to get into some skin the cat type variations, but I have to be pretty careful because my shoulder extension is probably my weakest area. Here I am just doing some dips. You can start to see a little bit of the mobility progress where I can actually get deeper into that dips and really get into like the pec fibers working. And I feel a huge difference in terms of the stimulation. It feels a lot better. It's just a more comfortable range of motion. And so that mobility work really is pretty impactful, especially if you're tight like I am. I haven't really made huge progress skill wise since I started doing the rings work, but I can feel a huge difference in terms of my strength, my technique, my control, even my endurance. I can just last a lot longer. I need much lower rest. And I find that usually with this kind of training, if my endurance is getting better and my technique is getting better, then the strength is kind of soon to follow. But, when it comes to this higher level, more skill and strength intensive work, the plateaus are kind of delayed. Not the plateaus, sorry. The peaks are rather delayed, where your personal record is going to feel pretty disconnected from your actual effort just because there is a long adaptive period. But that's okay. You just have to kind of persevere. Just doing some chest assistance work here. I was really just working with a set of rings that was a little bit too high, but I was too tired this session to really do anything lower anyways. So I'm fine just doing the lean. I still feel like I was getting a chest stimulus. You can still see I'm getting pumped there. And then just some more accessory work. So the way I'm doing most of my rings work is I've got kind of my main strength movements either for like push or pull sets, and then I do secondary strength movements, and then I do some accessory work. So these are the accessories for the pressing movements. Obviously, it's a chest accessory and it's a tricep accessory. I really like overhead tricep extensions. There's not a lot of options when it comes to tricep training in calisthenics. And there's definitely not a lot of options that are even remotely as good as weight training. And so you have to kind of make do with what you can do. But the one I think like truly excellent tricep exercise for calisthenics training is the like overhead tricep extension. You do get a great stretch, a really good range of motion, and it does make a huge difference. However, luckily, pretty much every other you still do get a lot of tricep work from pressing work as you get heavier. But yeah, every other like upper body muscle, core muscle, I feel a huge stimulus from rings training, especially as you get into the higher level skills. There's a really massive difference in the requirements of the stabilizing muscles. Like I've noticed more development in my arms, for example, and I'm not actually doing so much accessory work or so much bodybuilding type work that I think that's making a huge difference in my physique. It really is just when you're getting into this higher level, really high demand strength work, you start getting a lot of these kind of secondary muscle groups coming up. I mean, if you look at a gymnast, they're not really doing bodybuilding style training, and yet they are able to do able to demonstrate like a pretty impressive physique. And it's not just their chest or back or whatever like you typically see in calisthenics. They have really well developed arms, etc. And yeah, they are doing assistance weight training as am I, but there's clearly something to be said for the rings, being able to bring up those lagging areas. You just really have to do enough strength endurance work to actually allow those adaptations to happen. And so it takes a lot of time and a pretty high threshold of skill that I think most people don't actually get to.